On elaboration of the point of food and sex, there are certain implications we need to understand. And this brings us to our part 2 of food and sex. And I'm going to go into socio-psychological refers to our kinds of behavior as an influence in the foods that we eat. I'm going to really look at just one by not looking at so many now, estrogen. When we have the men to whom estrogen becomes an interference and they've taken in the artificial one, they usually tend to react in a way that is very interesting. Besides having low sperm counts, you find that they tend to act more like women. And they tend to lose the masculine tendencies and preferences and prefer to show to be cared for, to be more feminine than to be the masculine. And this has more or less distorted the social, psychological way of, let me say, dating and getting in touch with one masculine energy and a feminine energy at the same time. Within ourselves also, we are affected by the estrogen levels that we eat in all the foods and all the preservatives that we find in foods and all these genetically modified foods. That usually the women, there is someone within women who works in such a way that even though they are women, because of this excess of estrogen, again the women get more of the masculine traits. Now you find in the modern day, I gave my example, but I'm not saying this is exactly where I'm going. I'm just giving it as a general observation that we found in our findings. You find that in these socialization groups, within the women themselves, now they have women they prefer to be with that exhibit more masculine elements than the men who are men physically and not gay, but exhibit more feminine qualities. Now the competition is within the gender. The men are competing with women for women, and the women are competing with men for men on the men's side. Meaning that the men also prefer to go out by the guys, do nothing, where they really do not have to exhibit masculinity because they do not have it. Their hormones have changed, their preferences have changed. They do not like to provide, they do not like to protect, they want to be taken care of. Just like even the women are also in the same energy, they'll find this. And this has distorted the social psychological way of how men interact with women. You find that even if physically they are not gay, their preferences has changed. The men wish to act more like women, to be taken care of than to provide and protect. And the women also are more like men. They've changed the roles and flipped them the other way. So in as far as social psychological conditioning as a result of the foods we eat, it has really gone on a really, really different level. You know, you cannot now have the balance within the races. You know, everything more or less within the sexes, everything more or less is about the same, you know. So someone may actually be married, but when they prefer to be conned, to be touched, to be caressed, and when it comes to the bedroom, it may be the woman who should play the role of a man. And the man wants the woman to play it, and then the woman wants to play the role of a man. So it is this kind of confusion that even men find being in their own skin as men very uncomfortable. So they prefer to socialize with fellow men, where they go and eat more genetically modified kitchens, stay in the bars and do whatever they do, talk guy stuff. And recently of this, and of recent and in the modern days, even girls' nights out have become more popular. They understand they can deal more and they don't want a man to be included within the girls' nights out. So you find it is this kind of thing that is really switching off people in terms of their hormones, in terms of who they are, in terms of their sexuality, whether it is masculine or feminine energy. It is all switched off. And you find that when you become this kind of person who's learned to switch off now from being a man, you end up switching off completely, and that role also goes off in your body until you end up being a man, but you don't identify with being a man, though you're never called gay. You might as well be, because everything else and your preferences have more or less changed. You want to be taken care of, you want these things to be done that way, you want to be pampered. It's not a male thing anymore. It's not the masculine thing, you know. So this is the part of food and sex that goes into our social and psychological conditioning and distorts the family circle, that even reproduction becomes a problem and even marriages become an issue.
because nobody is comfortable being married. If only they were listening to their emotions. You can find so many people would say, I would rather be alone. This life is boring. I can have a child, maybe society wants it, but I want to be alone. I don't want to be in this kind of social setting. And also not being able to feel which feelings of ours are supposed to tell us, look, you like this or you do not like this. When we begin doing things for the sake of it, because society demands it of us to reproduce, to name our ancestors or our parents, their names, our parents are now next for offsprings, we go into this thing and we don't feel.
First of all, we need to understand that life is a system. There is no such thing as you're separate from this and separate from that. If you have a DNA of 3.5 billion years, which is within your brain, it means you have information which is as old as the universe itself. So the entire world and everything within the world is right inside of you. So if anything on the outside is genetically modified, so are you. Because we are basically relating, whether it is with plants, whether it is what, in terms of DNA, which is electromagnetic waves. So these electromagnetic waves actually help us in understanding that when we preserve the whole system, then we are okay. When we separate it into parts, we are breaking ourselves into two parts. So you will find that even when people fall sick, one of the biggest problems they have, through my observations and the studies that I've been a part of, you'll find that even if someone had a disease as bad as a cancer, what is going to hurt them the most is that they feel disconnected. Even when they came to hospital with their relatives, their spouse, and the entire family escorted them. Now I would conduct interviews and ask, like, why do you feel disconnected? What is the problem with you? And then he will tell you, I don't know where I am. And you go like, you don't know where I am, what do you mean? I don't know who I am anymore. The person talking, I don't know who I am anymore, he's like 50, 60, 70 years old, or he's an adult past the age of 18. For sure they ought to know who they are. But because our DNA carries 14 generations of memory in our brains, sometimes people are feeling the reality of what it means to be disconnected, and they are expressing it in a disease that has nothing totally to do with it. So you have to understand and look at them and then tell them, do this and then do that, do this. This is why holistic approaches of health are also very good, because they make high frequency foods and nutrition as part of your diet as you're recovering and getting better and recuperating from whatever kind of condition that you may be in. So the issue of food and sex has never been deeper than we can even talk about. Today you do it by considering another reason and you ignore your feelings. Tomorrow you're not feeling totally. So you are living with a person you cannot identify with. And then you cannot go because it's really pointless. You no longer feel anything. So whether you go or you stay, it's the same thing. So in that way, we've also not become true to ourselves. And this formation of these foods that we are eating is not only destroying male organs and low sperm count, it is also changing our preferences. If we are men, sometimes you can find women who want to be men. And then if you're, even in character and in personality, and then if they are men, you find they are acting more like women. When you see a woman you like, the first signal that you like this woman is tell her all your problems. If the first thing is, so it is becoming a bit more complicated than it ever was, and it goes further deep to also destroy the family structure. This is the social, psychological element of GMOs and how it distorts families without even looking at it, without even anybody becoming gay or whatever. Everybody in some sense has gotten a change due to these hormones in terms of this. And even when you're talking about how about our moods, more people are depressed. So what are they feeding us in as far as medication is concerned? Steroids. Hormonal balancing, happy pills are now what is coming there. Meaning to be happy, you don't need to connect with another human being. Swallow a pill, now they are called happy pills. Let it make you happy and excite you. If not, go to the bar. Whatever the case, don't talk to another person about it. So our connectedness has gone away. We are more wired and less connected to one another. So that means we are literally robots, transformed over time to this that we are in the modern day. So if we are to really understand it, human beings, we feel the frustration, we feel isolated, we feel lost. They are not necessarily coming because someone has angered you today. They are coming from memories of your past, in terms of how was this and how did I feel, and these memories of your ancestors, you even were not there. So again, you know what another illusion is? Another illusion is that because people have disappeared in the body, you have no connection with them. For as long as they ever stepped here, you have their DNA within you. And electromagnetic fields are interchanging information, whether you like it or not. So the past, the present, and the future are all the same, you know. So this is how we need to understand that life is a system, and it is a holistic approach. So when we come and we begin to separate these things, we begin to separate diet, we begin to separate, there is a lot even about human behavior that is going to change. Human behavior is not going to be loving anymore. Human behavior is going to be a stranger to itself and a stranger to others also. Human behavior is going to do things that have never been heard of in human history because they are new. And this is where food and sex become really an issue. We need to understand life as a system, not just as breathing in and out. It is a little bit more than that.
If you want to take over the world and you're using your mind very well, you used to think sex and food. When you disorganize those two things, then you're done. Because through sex, if you are now having diseases like HIV, through this socialization and all that kind of stuff, it means that anyone, even if they got bypassed and they were removed from the womb through these procedures that protect a child and an infant from having HIV when they are young, the mere fact that they have not had that nurturing, they cannot be able to give birth to 5 or 10 generations ahead, because they would have missed something in their nurturing, which should have come more naturally than growing up outside the body. Because if that was the case, all of us naturally would have been born outside that. That is if we are believing in the creative intelligence and the way of making things as perfection, you know. So this is what exactly is happening to the human race.
In the 21st century, it has turned out to be that as sexual preferences have changed gradually, sex psychology studies have been able to show that most couples that stayed together longer and were deemed happier revealed that the secret to their marriage was good sex. This meant that they had partners who were able to experiment with diverse sex in the bedroom. They called this switching it up. This included sexual behavior as gay and lesbian couples would have it. The difference here was that an emerging number of married couples admitted to this under the claim that for as long as they were married, they could have any kind of sex, and the key was in finding a partner who can switch up a bit and not take sex to be the usual but all kinds of things. The difference is they both practiced gay and lesbian sexual preferences under the sanctity of a marriage behind closed doors. They were also married men and women who held a double standard, hence had children, a husband or wife, outwardly a family, but also had a same-sex affair outside marriage. These people were also open to having sex with opposite sex outside marriage for as long as the extramarital affair would not wreck their marriage, and the partners they were involved with outside a marriage commitment understood that they would not divorce to marry them, but were game and okay with the idea that it was always going to be that way. Although due to society perception, marriage was very important for varied reasons. Just like we talk having a network on your mobile phone, over 50% of married couples were on sexual networks, and each sought outside release from the times when their partners were not indulging them. Above all, things are not the way they seem. Overall, whether people are gay or not, sexual preferences have drastically changed in the 21st century. As others seek varied sex, others prefer gay and lesbian orientation, some practice it under the curtain of marriage with different masks on, others have increase in sexual desire and need to a point that it becomes something that runs their lives, while others have been totally repulsed and prefer not to indulge at all. Whichever way, the social structure is hugely affected, where both men and women on one side prefer not to be married to some degree, and those that marry will also have sex networks for varied sex, while others demand they should be let out as gay and lesbians. Whichever way you see it, you can't deny the whole spectrum of social psychological tendencies around sex, which has changed, and to a point of changing everybody. Even those that want to have families find themselves with more infertility issues, to low sperm count, to abnormal births, etc. The real question here is, how do you fight the enemy within? The answer could be to probably find the root cause and the constant factor in the everyday lifestyle of a human life. Some of the common denominators are types of food, preservatives, and toxins in the body. The greatest calamity underlying all this is a disconnection from the true self.